Hey guys, this is Vanessa Dyer, and I'm the Charlotte, North Carolina-based lifestyle blogger behind thecheekybean.com. With several successful years as a business owner, a first-time mom, and a deep passion for health and wellness, I'm here to share my honest, unfiltered advice on all things motherhood, relationships, travel, and more. So grab a coffee and join the conversation. This is the Cheeky Bean Podcast.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday. How are we all? I am so excited for today's episode because we are back with my very best friend, Meryl Balcome. Meryl and I have been best friends now for around 5 years or so. We met through our husbands, and the full scoop on how our friendship flourished into what it is today is back in season 1, episode 3. But today we are tackling the topic of friendship. I think this is a powerful conversation around a topic that's really important and honestly not talked about enough. So especially for women in our 30s. So Meryl, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me back again.
I know. I'm so excited you're back. This is going to be a good conversation. You and I both have strong feelings and standpoints on female friendships. We both take our female friendships very seriously. So I want to start off by asking, what does a female friendship mean to you?
Okay, so I have to tell the listeners you did give me this question in advance. Thank goodness, because I really did need to think about this one. And what I came up with were 2 words to me: intimate and safe. So I think your female friendships, if they mean enough to you and they have stood the test of time, are extremely intimate. They know the good, the bad, the ugly, the highs, the lows, the sads. And so I think just being able to be safe in an intimate space is what's most important to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I know we both are on the same page too about like, it's okay to not have a ton of friends.
Yes.
My dad always said to me, you can only count your best friends on one hand. And I think we are both in this phase in life where we're in our 30s where that's very true for both of us. We probably can only count our best friends on one hand. But those are the friends that do make you feel safe and that do know your ups and downs, and that there is no gatekeeping in terms of like, hey, this is where I'm at in life, even when it's not shiny and like exciting, and everyone ebbs and flows. And I think you've done a really good job of nourishing and like depositing into those friendships that you have. So that's something that I've really admired about you, because I know you have friendships that are near and far, right? Like not all of them are here local, and that's a lot harder to maintain too.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think depositing into the friendship bank, I love that you said that. And it does take time and it does take effort, and it's a two-way street. So I do have friends that are near and far. I've got 2 best friends that are still back in Indiana in my hometown. I've got a friend that lives in St. Louis now. You are here, and there's my handful of friends, right, that mean the most to me.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to create space to make time for one another, no matter how busy you get, right? Like all of my friends now have children, and it's still important to like have a space for your best friends.
For sure. And so that's a topic I really wanted to talk about too, because a hot take on Instagram is that you guys don't want kids. And I know all of your friends do have kids, and friendships, regardless of that aspect, tend to change and ebb and flow with life as well. So I think having friendships change is also one of the most painful experiences that can happen. Sometimes a friendship breakup can feel exactly like a breakup from a boyfriend. And I know that's really tough. But I want you to talk about how you've handled your friends being in different stages of life, especially with not wanting kids. Have you felt like you've lost some connections, and how do you handle that?
Oh gosh, this is such a good question. And if my 2 best friends from Indiana ever listen to the podcast, they'll probably laugh, and they will. They love your podcast. But I would say I really, really struggled with my 2 best friends from home having kids, and I almost like rejected the kids. Like I was like, wait a second, it's not all about us anymore, and we have to be around Eli and Logan, those are the 2 oldest, their schedules. And when I go visit, it was truly revolving around the kids. And I just struggled with it. I was a little bit younger. They chose to have children earlier on in life, right after they both got married. And I was a little bit younger. I was a little bit more immature. They were my first friends to have babies. And I just like didn't do well with it. I was so jealous. And I was so like mad that we couldn't just go and be friends, and like we had to bring the kids along.
Yeah. It definitely changed the nature of your friendship and what
Yes.
you were used to.
100%. And so I had to learn to like take a step back. And I'll never forget, Katie was like, she had a very honest conversation with me about how her kids are number one. Like, it was actually kind of embarrassing that she even had to have this conversation with me. But she was like, my kids aren't going away and they're my priority. So when you come and visit, things just look different.
Yeah.
And that humble teaspoon of whatever, teaspoon of humbleness really brought me back down to life. And so I think my other friends, and as they had more children, it only helped me. And I've realized that the dynamics change, and I've learned that it's okay. And surprise, you fall in love with your friends' kids.
Yeah.
And then they become just as special.
I know. You're literally Aunt Meryl to like a whole slew of children, and they absolutely love you, which I think you would probably say is also the best of both worlds. Like, you don't want children of your own, but you get to love on them and do all the things that are so fun, you know,
Yes.
about the role of being an aunt without the responsibility of all the things that maybe aren't so beautiful or glamorous about motherhood. Like, you get to give it back at the end of the day.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. That's half the fun, right? Like, you get to love on them. You get the best of them because they're not cranky and they're just these happy little bubbly babies and what turn into toddlers. And then you get to give them back when it's time to go to bed and do all the hard stuff.
Yeah. I think too, like, I came along a little later in
Yes.
your life as a friend. And so you had already kind of been through that phase of, you know, your kids that your friends that you're really close with had kids. And so I was really impressed with how our friendship continued to evolve. And, you know, I think we're closer than we've ever been, but I also have a child now. And I know other people have asked you about that who don't want children, but who are really weary of how it will change their friendships with other people. So what advice would you give somebody that doesn't want kids, but has friends or all of their friends want children who are really worried about that friendship dynamic changing?
I would say embrace the change. It is going to change. There is no question about it. So if you can embrace the change rather than resist it, then you can only become stronger friends. And I genuinely believe that. I also think our friendship and our version with you having a child was sort of what my dream was, right? Like, I do actually get to be Aunt Meryl, and I am right down the road, and I can't wait for sleepovers, and he knows me, and we've spent weekends with him, and you've let us into your life and into his life in a way that it's just not feasible because all of my friends live everywhere, but you are like exactly what, if I lived in Muncie, if I lived in Kansas City, like, I would hope that it would be the exact same.
Yeah.
And so it does change the dynamic, but if you can embrace it and just welcome it with open arms, you will not be upset about it.
Yeah. And I think on the flip side, like, from my point of view, it has made me so much closer to you because, like, as a mom, you would hope that your best friends, you know, love on your babies and love your kids the same way that you do. And watching, you know, you and Balcome love on Liam the way that you have has truly, like, it only makes our heart grow even bigger. You know, it's like so fun to watch other people love your children the same way that you do. And that's really rare, I think. Like, for him to have another figure in his life that's so present on a regular basis because we are always together.
Yes.
Not a lot of people get to have that. And I think growing up for him, like, from my standpoint, it's going to be so beautiful that he has, like, Aunt Meryl and Uncle Balcome to run to when mommy and daddy aren't being nice, you know, or like I
or he gets in trouble.
Yeah, like, I can see the writing on the wall. Like, he's gonna be grounded. He's gonna call Aunt Meryl. Aunt Meryl's gonna tell me he's here. He's fine. Like, you know,
He's going to stay the night. Everybody's just going to calm down.
Yes, exactly. But I think too, like, to your point earlier in this conversation around, you know, jealousy and like those initial feelings that you felt, those are hard feelings to work through. And I think jealousy presents itself in female relationships and friendships all over the place. And I actually want to talk about that because I think a lot of women are really competitive with each other. And I love that phrase of her success is not my failure. And I think so many women, regardless of this phase that we're in, even, you know, when we're getting married or when you're trying to get pregnant and your friends around you are like, they're getting engaged, they're getting pregnant with their first child, they're buying their first house. Mm-hmm. There's this notion of jealousy that happens in women, and it does not happen in men, which is a very interesting conversation because men do not they are not affected by it the same way that women are, where you're just like, well, damn it, she got engaged before me. But you know, at the end of the day, like it doesn't actually affect your life. And I know we've talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in the moment and you just want to get engaged so bad and everyone around you is getting engaged and you're so jealous of that. But when you look back at it, you're like, oh my God, what did it matter? It didn't matter at all.
Didn't matter at all.
You know? And so I think that's something that like I really have kind of wanted to talk about because I think women need to be better towards other women. And women can be really mean to one another. And typically at the core of that, I think, is like a ringleader who's either influencing that behavior or unhappiness that that person feels inside that's unrelated to the person at hand. And the premise of my existence in the online space has always been centered around empowering women to feel their best. So I've always wanted to uplift women, share advice, share hacks, share tips, you name it. You know, things that have helped me in the hopes that it would benefit someone else too. But we live in this era where there's a lot of gatekeeping, a lot of unhappiness that stems from deep-rooted issues that are then presented just as mean girls,
right?
Really. And I always like to think that my community doesn't have women who are mean to each other. But at the end of the day, we do. And I have, recently been a kind of what I would call a human punching bag for a set of women who don't know me, who don't listen to this podcast. And I've vented to you about that a lot. Yeah. They've never met me. They haven't sat down with me, yet they're influenced by another friend or, someone who's just mad at the world. And so they're willingly able to be nasty to someone that they don't know. You know, you're a complete stranger. So I want to talk about like if you are who you surround yourself with, and if your friends are asking you to do nasty things to, the benefit of them, it's probably time to demote those people in your friendship because
100%.
Yeah, like that's toxic energy. And like I said, you are who you surround yourself with. And so I love that. I've listened to a lot of other podcasts by other entrepreneurs who are like, you should surround yourself with people who are better than you, who are more successful than you, who lift you up and motivate you to be a better person. And I think our friendship emulates that beautifully because, like, sure, you always feel jealous of people at certain moments in time, but that mean girl aspect isn't there because we motivate each other to be better.
Yes.
And so I just want to talk about like your take on that and, the toxic energy that is surrounded around that like mean girl notion that happens pretty frequently. I mean, even in our 30s, it's still happening, I mean,
first and foremost, I have zero tolerance for mean girls. And when people come after you, I want to go crazy. I'm very protective of my friends and I like have zero tolerance for it. But I think you're right. Like the like there's a difference between, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. Like I wish I could do that. And I am jealous. So I'm going to maliciously do X, Y, and Z to come after you. Because I feel that all the time. Like you are beautiful, you are successful, you have got all of these like wonderful things coming at you this year. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I am so jealous for her. I want to be her. I want to do these things. Like, of course, I am your best friend. But like those are like positive feelings of like uplift, encourage. Let me be part of it. I want to be part of it. I want to celebrate you. I think if you can surround yourself with friends that can celebrate you and want you to be better, then like those are your real friends. The ones that want to tear you down or have malicious energy, negativity,
or like influence you to do things that are not putting any positive energy into the ether. You know what I mean? That is just not, it's not good for you. Even though you don't think it's actually affecting you, it is affecting you. And I think it all truly stems from an insecurity somewhere.
Yep.
Like if I think about all the times that I've actually truly been jealous of someone, it stemmed not from that person, but from an insecurity that I had with myself. And I think when you get to a place where you can really look in the mirror and take a hard look at yourself and say, okay, why is this bothering me?
Yeah.
Why do I want to be mean to this person? Why do I want to be why do I have this negative energy around that person? If you can find what the root cause of that is, and usually at the end of the day, it is an insecurity somewhere, you will be a better person from it later on down the road.
Looking in the mirror is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
It is
It's tough.
It is really tough. And like no one's perfect. And to your point, like if you've ever been jealous of somebody, it's deep rooted. It's something inside of you. It has nothing to do with that person.
Yeah.
And that is extremely hard to do. And I think like tying the friendship piece into it, sometimes you have best friends that have to be your mirror and have to kind of like pull you out of that. And if they're pushing you in instead of pulling you out, it's time for a new friend. That's not a good friend.
100%. Like I always, in this situation that has been happening to me, I always look at it as like, if Meryl asked me to do something for her that went against my view of like, hey, this is how we treat people. This is how people should be treated because this is how I want to be treated in return. I would have a hard conversation with you and just say, hey, I understand that what you're going through is tough and like you're mad and you're upset, but this is not the way to deal with it. This isn't a healthy way to deal with it. Like, let's sit down and talk about how I can help you as a friend to deal with this in a positive light.
Yes. And like politely no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do that.
It's okay to set boundaries and say no.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like if I were doing that to you, being able to sit down and be like, okay, what's the root cause here? Like this is not who you are. This is not who you want to be. And I know that. And so, you know, having a friend that is willing to do that is also really important.
Right.
And I mean, that's your safe space.
Exactly. I was just going to say, I think that's, you know, what Katie and Aaron did with you when they sat you down and said, where is this coming from?
Yes.
Like, this is a tough conversation, but your jealousy is rooted from something else. And at the end of the day, you know, I of course want to be your friend and I want to respect your feelings, but my kids are going to come first.
Yes.
It's that same concept in a different scenario.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And so I also want to talk about boundaries because I think that is something that women really struggle with. And I think you have to set boundaries to protect our energy. And as we were walking in here, we were talking about when Meryl and I first met, you know, she definitely had some boundaries where she didn't like working out with other people. And we had met and we were, you know, flourishing this new friendship and she looked great and she was raving about this fitness program. And I was like, hey, can I join you on the next round of that program? And she almost said no. Thank God she didn't.
Very hesitant.
now we work out together, you know, at 3 mornings a week. Yep. And it's like a therapy for me, honestly. But you're very rooted in your boundaries and you're like, I don't like working out with people. You know, this is a boundary for me. Now the roles have kind of reversed where I'm in my 30s. I have no problem saying no. And there's a lot of times where Meryl and I are going back and forth and she's like, I really don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to go do this, but you know, Balcome wants me to go or my family wants me to do this. And I'm like, Meryl, just say no. It's okay to just say no, especially when it comes to friendship, because I am a big believer and you have to protect your energy. And if it's not filling up your cup, then set that boundary. You know, your friends should be giving you energy. When we go to the gym, I walk in, I'm sleepy, I'm tired. And when we leave, like my cup is so full and I am so energized by our conversations at the gym together. And even outside of that, like just when we do things, you know, we had girls' night the other night, we didn't do anything. We sat on my couch at the house.
It was glorious.
Made a cocktail, let Liam run around, tore the whole place up, and the boys went and did their thing. But like my cup is so full when you leave. And there are definitely people in your life that you meet and spend time with that truly do that. But then there are also people that drain your energy. And I want to talk about like, where is that line? You know, where do you draw the line where you say, okay, this person they're not filling up my cup. They're draining my energy. Where do you draw the line and the boundary where you say, okay, it's time to demote that person to the second tier of friendship, you know?
Totally. The second tier friendship, demoting, I love how you put that, demoting your friendship to the second tier. For me, it's seasonal, I think. Or at least my experience of having to demote a friendship to a second tier has been seasonal. My example is a seasonal moment in time. But you have to set the boundaries, right? Like if that person isn't bringing you joy or like you said, they're just sucking the daylight out of you, like there's enough in the world that sucks the life out of you.
Right.
Having to put time and energy into a friendship that also sucks your energy, like move on.
Yeah.
And if you can realize that sooner rather than later, like not analyzing, that's not the right word, but maybe just like realizing or reassessing your friendships in seasons, in certain phases of life. Like the quicker you can come to that conclusion, the better you're going to be. And quite frankly, you'll probably be back to all of your friends can fit on one hand.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's hard to set those boundaries.
Oh my gosh, so hard.
There's a lot of people out there who are people pleasers and they have a really hard time saying like, okay, I'm doing this for me. It actually has nothing to do with you. I have to protect my peace.
Yes.
And I'm setting these boundaries for me. I'm not asking anything else of you as a friend. It's just not filling my cup. But I promise you, you will feel like such a huge weight is lifted when you can sit with yourself and say like, these are my boundaries. And I even think in marriage, like Shane is a much more social person than me. And he keeps his social circle really close and like really puts a ton of deposits and he's always on. But I socially am not, I don't have nearly as much social energy, I should say, as he does.
Yeah.
So I have to set those boundaries for myself. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the people that we're hanging out with. Like sometimes it's just the mental state that I'm in where I have to say, I had a really crazy work week. Like I feel mentally drained. I'm tired. Like I just don't have the energy to give to other people right now. And especially when they're people that are like our second tier friends,
Yes.
what I call, and it took a long time for us to get to that point in our marriage where I was like, hey, I get that you need this, but this is what I need. So, we can be okay with you go do it. I'll stay home. And that way I'm protecting my peace, but you're filling up your cup at the same time, I think it's okay. I think that also takes years of marriage and practice and work and communication to get to that point too.
And you have to be okay with almost feeling like you're disappointing the other person when you're really not. Like I had a crazy work week last week. I didn't attend an event with my husband over the weekend because I was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And I know, or at least I felt like I was disappointing him, but I don't really think I was. I think he was like, okay, you are tired. You've had a long week. You rest and recharge.
Right.
And I'm going to go recharge the way that I recharge.
Yeah.
And you have to be confident in your marriage, to your point, to like feel like this is okay. But we've been married 8 years. I'm very confident in our marriage. I'm very comfortable in our marriage. And it still is like, oh, I don't want to disappoint him.
Right.
But sometimes you have to do what you need to do to recharge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if your battery is drained and you're doing something that you don't actually want to do just in the name of people pleasing or pleasing somebody else,
you're never going to recharge.
Exactly. It only further, drains the battery.
Yes.
And then the next day you're still drained. And
Yep.
the next day you're still drained. And you kind of you're never able to get back to that healthy, like, okay, let's go do something. I'm mentally here. Because also when you're drained like that, you really aren't mentally there for that person anyway.
No, you're
in
not.
that moment,
Nope. And I think like the people that love you the most understand that, don't take offense to it, and they move on. Like
Right.
even there, I feel like, new job, new responsibilities, lot more extrovert happening at work for me right now. And like I feel like there's been a couple of times on a Friday when you guys have reached out and said, hey, do you want to go to dinner? And I'm like, I just can't.
Yeah.
I just physically, mentally, emotionally, I can't. I just need to sit at home and be quiet. And the people that love you the most, they don't care.
Right.
They actually are impressed and will give you all the time and the space you need so you can be the
100%.
best you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been multiple times, like even on the flip side where I've said, hey, let's go do this. And you're like, I can't right now. Or you've been like, hey, let's go grab coffee. And I'm like, I'm actually going to hang here. I need a slow Saturday morning.
Yep.
We'll catch up with you guys later.
Or you want to sleep in at the gym. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't. So we do our own thing. And it's like,
and it's okay. Yeah.
Yes.
But I also think that goes back to like being true friends. Like it's okay to not always be okay. And it's okay to let that person see that. And
Yes.
I think sometimes people struggle with, and I think it's a competition thing because women are so competitive with each other. It's hard to let somebody else see that like you're not always on 100. You don't always have all the energy in the world to give to everybody. Or like, I always feel like I can be really vulnerable with you and tell you like, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. I'm truly not okay, but it's okay. It's a moment in time. I'm going to get through it. Versus I think when women are competitive with each other, they're so scared to show that side of what's actually going on that they always have this surface level relationship with each other because it's not truly you're not truly in your safe space with that person. And you can only nourish a friendship to a certain degree if you can't fully be open with that person. I think a friendship is almost like a marriage, to be honest.
It's intimate. That's like that's why I picked those two words, because it's intimate and it's safe. And like, I actually would describe my marriage that way too. It is intimate and it's safe.
Right.
It really is like the true, like you said, if you're a true friend, it is so intimate and you have to feel so safe to be able to pull the guard down, say, I'm not okay, and ask for advice.
Yeah.
You know, like it's pretty wild when you think about it, like how intimate friendships can really be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, people struggle with like, if you are in a friendship with somebody who you really, really care about and you just feel like something's off, I also think people have a really hard time with confrontation or the uncomfortable conversations. But I read a quote earlier today actually that said like, the measure of success is based off of how many uncomfortable conversations you're okay with having. And that like really resonated with me because I actually struggle with uncomfortable conversations. I like want to avoid them with all my being at all costs. But you know, recently we've been in situations where we've had to have those uncomfortable conversations. And whether they're with a friend, somebody who works for you, it does at the end of the day make you a more well-rounded person. And I think people respect that you're okay with having the uncomfortable conversation. So if you're in this situation where you're like, I kind of feel like something's off. I kind of feel like maybe they're mad at me. Maybe I'm making this up in my head. Like just have the uncomfortable conversation and say, is everything okay with us? And really at the end of the day, I think that person probably has other things going on that are bothering them, that, you know, work is crazy, work is overwhelming, your stress levels are really high. You just don't have your battery is not fully charged to give to your friend.
Yeah.
But when you have that conversation, if you are true friends, that person will totally understand that. And I think at the end of the day, you're like, I'm so happy we had this conversation. Like, how can I be there for you right now?
And even if it is about you, like, don't you want to know that? Like, you don't know what you don't know. So if you're rubbing somebody the wrong way or someone that you care so deeply about, you're hurting them, don't you want to know that? Like, yes, confrontation is scary. And yes, like you said, 9 times out of 10, it is likely an external event or circumstance that is going on. But if the off chance that it is you, don't you want to know?
Right.
I would want to know.
Yeah.
That would like kill me if I found out I was hurting you and I had no idea I was doing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would absolutely want to know that. But again, it also roots back to like, those are true friends.
Yeah.
If you are okay with not knowing it and just kind of letting it fizzle out and like, hopefully it gets okay down the road, you probably need to do a friendship audit, which we talked about. And just, you know, the friendship audit is 5 questions that you can ask yourself about the friends that are around you. And they are, does this friend bring me joy? Does this friendship help me through challenging times? Does this friend love me for who I am? Does this friend listen without needing to make it about them or trying to make it okay? Because we also have that friend that only talks about themselves all the time and they hang up the phone and they never once asked you, you know, are you okay?
Retweet.
Yeah. And then the 5th question is, do I still want to be friends with this person? So I think when, you know, times get tough and times are challenging, you should just do a friendship audit and just say like, okay, where am I at with these people? Are they filling up my cup? Are they making me happy? Do I truly feel like they care about me? Are they going to be okay if I stop reaching out? Because there are also those friends who you're constantly the one putting the deposits in and they are just take.
And that's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And at that point, it's like, you got to be okay with just saying, all right, I'm moving that person to the 2nd tier friendship, you know? And
dear listeners, take that away. 2nd tier friendship.
Yeah. You know, the 2nd tier friendship are the people that you still see here and there. You still reach out here and there. Like you're still friends, but you're not spending all your time depositing into that friendship because it's just not worth it. It's not, and that's okay.
And who has the time for that? Like, I don't know how people have huge circles. And I know guys are different from girls. And I'm sure my husband would be like, that's so not true. I have all these good friends. Yeah. But for me.
Said every man ever.
Said every man ever. Maybe they're not intimate with their friends the way that women are.
No, I actually think there's something to that. I don't think they are. I really don't think they are.
That's probably the difference between men and women. They're just fine with it.
Yeah.
But women, apparently we need just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if they are into that 2nd tier, it's fine. You get more time back and you get a deposit into the people that are your 1st tier friends.
Yeah. 100%.
You can't go wrong there.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by, we need to bring some men onto the podcast and let's talk about this friendship thing with men, because I am really intrigued by like why this is such a thing for women and not for men. You know, we were saying right before we started this episode, we were like my husband he never has drama with his friends. He doesn't understand the drama with women whatsoever. And it's like, you know, you make a tea time and John doesn't show up to the tea time because he's hungover, and like women would be mad about like, oh, you didn't show up to our girls' night that we had planned for forever.
It'd be a whole thing.
And the guys are like, sucks for you, man. We had a great day on the golf course, and like the friendship continues. You know,
honestly, we could learn something from them.
We could. We absolutely could. But you know, men too, like they're not competitive with each other, and I don't think that they have any jealousy.
They're so confident too.
They're very confident. There's no, they don't really like question where they're at.
Yeah. Like who they are.
Yeah. And I think that's like, it all boils back to like some of these people who have the jealousy and the competitive stuff. They are not sure of who they are as a person.
Right.
So they kind of attach themselves to said friend and friend group and their personality and how they, you know, think they should treat somebody. And that's kind of like the ringleader thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't have your own identity and you aren't really strong in your own core values and who you are as a person, you will always latch on to somebody else and their identity because that is what makes you feel safe.
Right.
If you have, you know, you're two peas in a pod, basically. And I think like our friendship works so well because we were both really deep rooted and like very, we know who we are. Our identity is very clear for both of us.
Yes.
And it isn't always the same. Like we do not see eye to eye on a lot of big topics, but that's okay because I accept you for that and you accept me for that. And there's no like, we see each other equally. And I mean, not everyone's going to have the same opinion. The world would be such a boring place if everybody was on the same page at the same time.
Yes.
But I also think a lot of friendships fall apart because those are stopping points for a lot of people. You know, they're like, oh, your political views are this. I don't agree with that. So we can't be friends. And I don't think it has to be that way.
I mean, I agree with you. I have had friends in the past that, you know, don't think that men should be, or I guess the LGBTQIA plus community should be able to get married in a church. My father is gay. And like mind blown, I don't agree with that. And that hurt my feelings because I love my dad.
Yeah.
And I would never want him to be able or to feel like he couldn't do something that he wanted to do. And you know, that definitely like hurt me to my core. But at the same time, people are allowed to have their own views and their own opinions. And just because it doesn't line up with me doesn't make it not their reality.
Right.
I don't think it's right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it not that person's reality.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. And I mean, like on the kid front, right? Like I want you so badly to have kids. You would be the best mom. Balcome would be the best dad. But like, it's just something that you don't want.
Yep.
And I'll never be able to understand it. I try so hard to understand it.
Oh, yeah.
And I just don't understand it, but it's okay. Like, I'm totally okay with that. I'm like, they don't want kids. That's fine. I'm not going to project what I think is right onto you just for selfish reasons, truly.
Right.
Like, I selfishly just want you to have a kid so we can like talk about all the mom things and I can love on your baby the way you love on mine. And at the end of the day, like, that's another big topic for a lot of people that we see differently on, but we accept each other and our opinions and values around that.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes a friendship whole too, is being able to like see other people's viewpoints and maybe not be on the same page about them, but that's okay. You're never going to 100% of the time be on the same page with somebody else. And we've definitely gotten in heated debates over topics.
Especially over dinners.
Excuse me. Yeah. I mean, we I think one night at Supperlane, we got into the whole heated debate about Deshaun Watson and like,
oh gosh,
did he do it? Did he not do it? I went to school with him, you know? And it's like, I mean, no one really knows, but we got into it went all down a rabbit hole. I don't even remember.
Oh my gosh, we went 9 million different ways about that situation. That wasn't even that situation.
Right. And like all four of us were on different pages. Like the boys were on different pages and not the same. We were on different pages and not the same. But we left that dinner. We're like, great dinner. Yeah. This is great. Love each other.
Why not? Like, why not hear people out? And like, why not just say, okay, like people can have their own views.
Yeah.
And now I will say there are a lot of views in the world that if it doesn't match like the core of being kind and accepting and having a good heart, that is a hard line for me.
Yeah.
Like if you are coming from a place of hatred, even if it's a different view, I have zero time for that.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, you're protecting your peace.
Yes.
And you're setting your boundaries.
Yes.
And I think that's also very okay. I think the thing too with the, like in the world now, there's such a big divide and like cancel culture is such a big thing because I think people have almost taken like set the boundaries overboard a little bit. Like if you don't see eye to eye on all topics,
right
now there's like, well, then you're just canceled, you know? Or people make mistakes too. And I think mistakes happen in friendships too. Like maybe you are wrapped up with yourself and the current state of being that you're in and you're neglecting your friends. That, you know, you can say I made a mistake and
yes, I made a mistake recently. Remember when we bought the house and you asked me to get coffee and you were like, "Are you okay?" Like,
oh yeah,
I feel like I did. Like, I feel like there's like something off. Like, are you okay? Did I do something? Do we need to talk about it? And it was that I was so wrapped up in the drama of purchasing our beautiful home that I love dearly. But I started a new job. We bought a new house. Do not recommend doing that. Don't ever do that. We should have just had a kid and just been pew, 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 knocked
all the
out.
big hitters out at one time.
Got remarried.
Yeah.
But I was so wrapped up in those two things that I just like, I don't even think I took a beat for like what? A month or 2 months to even ask you how you were doing. Like I was the narcissistic friend in its entirety. Like I was trying to figure out my new job. We had house drama and I literally could not pull myself out of it until you were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, wow, I haven't even asked you how you're doing. Like I'm not okay. And I don't think I realized that.
I was like, you know, I kind of felt like you were pulling away a little bit. And I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't something that I had done. I was very aware of like all the big things that were going on in your life and they were huge life changes. So it made sense to me that like you're busy, you're stressed. You know, we talked about all the terrible things that were going down with the house. But
every day it was all about me though.
Yeah. But you know what? It's a season. It was a season. It was a moment in time. And right now, shit's been about me lately. So, you know, like it's my turn. It's an ebb and flow. But I was okay with having that conversation. I think we both cried. And we did. You know, we're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I hate that you're going through this and all this stuff. But I think you just have to be okay with having those conversations and also being okay with maybe you don't like the answer.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the answer was like, yeah, Vanessa, you pissed me off. You did this and I have no idea. And like, that would have hurt. That would have stung. But I value our friendship and I love you so much that I would have taken that and been like, okay, let me sit with this. Let me accept this. I heard what she said and how can I fix it?
Yeah.
You know?
I think you're real friends. There's no really amount of honest hurt that could ever make you stop being friends. Sure, there is like unforgiving hurt, but like honest hurt and like realizing what that means is you'll never not be a friend if you just are honest and people do things they don't mean to do it. And if it's not malicious, then circling back, you just have the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if something goes down and it is something that you can forgive but not forget, that's also okay. You know, you can accept that person's apology and just at that point set the boundary and say, I don't know that you're going to change as a person, you know, for forever. I think this is kind of who you are. And now I've seen that. And thank you for the apology. But I'm going to keep that person at a distance. You know, I think like the protecting your peace is also such a big thing with friendship.
Yes.
And it's also a hard thing to sit with too, because a lot of times things do happen and then, you know, full circle moments happen years down the road and that person's back in your life. And it's easy to remember all the good times.
Oh, absolutely.
And then forget, you know, but wait a second, you know, this is
remember when I used to feel this way all the time.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to talk too about the fatal flaw friend theory. So I was listening to Tinks's podcast and this is something that she was referencing and Meryl and I had literally never talked about this. So we just talked about it right before we got started. But for those of you who don't know, it's with every close friend, there's one main thing that's going to annoy you about that friend. So for example, you have the classic one-upper, the one, you know, the person's like, oh, I broke my leg. And the other person's like, well, I broke my leg in 3 different places. or maybe they're constantly late, or maybe they talk about themselves all the time. You have your classic narcissist. But the fatal flaw theory is where you have to accept that fatal flaw, because if you don't, you end up just being annoyed by them all the time. And when you're annoyed by them all the time, you just talk negatively about that person. So you can either not be friends with them or just accept it. And sometimes you have to make the hard decision to demote a friend. I know you like that word.
So great.
But that doesn't mean that you have to cut them out of your life completely. You basically just tier them out to a further away ring. So you have your top tier friends, and then you have your second tier friends. And it's just the notion that you're just putting more distance between you and that person for boundary purposes. And sometimes friendships have seasons too. So as we go through life and our seasons change, so do those around us. But we were laughing because we were like, wait, what's our fatal flaw? So
I asked Vanessa to rapid fire this for me, and she couldn't do it. So.
Yeah, I actually had to think about it. But it's funny because our fatal flaw is actually the exact same thing. But in reverse. But
in reverse, yes.
Meryl is always early to everything that she does. And I am always 2 minutes late. And our definition of being on time is different.
So my definition of being on time is we are at cardio. We're going to start at 7 a.m., turn on the machine promptly at 7 a.m. And Vanessa's definition of being on time is in the parking lot at 7 a.m.
Yep. My car's parked. It's turned off. And at 7 a.m., I'm walking in the building. So I'm on the machine at 7:02. And Meryl's like, where the hell is this girl? And then I get there and I'm like, look at the machine. And she's 12 minutes into her Stairmaster workout. And I'm like, this chick is never here when we're supposed to start. So yeah, of course she's annoyed with me because she's 12 minutes into our 20-minute cardio session. And now she's got to do extra minutes.
Well, that's it. That's exactly it. I don't want to do the extra minutes.
Listen, I'm just going to go ahead and say that this actually benefits you because you get a little bit of extra cardio unwillingly.
Is that how you see that? That's so cute.
Oh man, that is so great. Well, I think that's all we have today. I feel like this was a great topic to discuss. Like I said, I think making friends and culturing or nourishing friendships in your 30s is really hard, and it's not talked about often enough. I feel like we could probably still talk about this for a whole nother hour about how you make friends in your 30s.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
How friendship changes in motherhood and all this stuff. But that is all we have for today. So I hope you guys have an awesome week. Thank you so much for listening. Meryl, thank you for joining again.
Thank you for having me.
Always a good time. And we will catch you Wednesday next week.